The silence contract. What was Menglong forbidden to say? The lights of the studio had long gone cold. Once, this place shimmered with applause, laughter, and cameras flashing like restless stars. Now it stood in silence, the kind of silence that feels arranged, rehearsed, and paid for. Somewhere in that silence sat Menglong, the man whose smile had once melted through television screens. His eyes, though calm, carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken lines, words he was never allowed to utter, confessions that had been locked behind a contract written not in ink, but in fear. It began on a night soaked in neon. The city's billboards flashed his face, the prince of period dramas, the dream sculpted in soft light and tender glances. But as the crowd screamed his name, Yu's voice cracked mid-speech. He blinked, stumbled, and then fell silent. Cameras zoomed in. The audience thought it was emotion. It wasn't. That night, backstage, 3 men in black suits waited for him. No names. No greetings. Just a document, stamped with red wax and silence thicker than smoke. "Sign it," one said, "or lose everything you've ever built." The air trembled. The contract had no title, only an emblem, a golden serpent devouring its tail. It was the symbol of Eclipse Media, a company whispered about in corners of the industry. Rumor said they didn't just own actors. They owned the silence around them. You signed. Because sometimes, in this business, silence is the only thing that keeps you alive. Months passed. The world thought Menglong had taken a break. Fans made edits, tributes, videos begging for his return. But what they didn't know was that he had written something, a screenplay titled The Mirror's Debt. It was the rawest, truest thing he'd ever created, a story about betrayal, manipulation, and the price of fame. When Eclipse Media found out, the studio lights flickered again. They called it unsuitable for release. Too close to reality, one executive murmured. Too close to us, another corrected. The script was buried. Every copy destroyed, except one, which Yu kept hidden in a piano bench at his old rehearsal room. The same piano where he'd learned his first song, long before fame had taught him to fear his own reflection. That script became his secret rebellion, his silent scream. But silence, like water behind a dam, always finds a crack. One stormy night, as thunder crawled across the sky, Yu returned to that rehearsal room. The piano was dusty, the keys pale as old bones. He lifted the bench lid and took out the script. But when he looked up, he swore he saw someone in the mirror behind him, himself, but older, wearier, with eyes that whispered, "You were warned." Then, a sound. Footsteps. He turned. No one. He left that night with the script pressed to his chest like a heart he wasn't supposed to own. What he didn't know was that someone had followed him, a journalist named Lian, one of the few who still remembered what it meant to chase truth instead of trends. Lian was brave, or foolish. She knew about the Eclipse Media contracts, about the actors who vanished after defying them. Some had gone silent. Others had simply disappeared. They can silence one man, she told him, but not a story. Weeks later, an anonymous post appeared online. A script excerpt, signed only with 3 letters. YML. Fans went wild. The lines were sharp, too real, too painful. It spoke of manipulation by faceless masters, of contracts that traded freedom for fame. The internet caught fire, and with it, Eclipse Media's fury. Menglong was summoned again. No lawyers this time. No witnesses. Just him, a boardroom, and the serpent-emblazoned folder. "You broke the silence," they said. "You broke our silence," he corrected softly. There was a pause, a stillness heavy enough to drown in. "You think truth will protect you?" they asked. "Truth doesn't protect," he said, "but it echoes." For the first time, someone in that room looked afraid. The next day, Menglong was gone. His team claimed he'd gone abroad for personal reasons. His fan pages turned to shrines. Hashtags rose and fell like waves. Hashtag where is Menglong? Hashtag the silence contract. Hashtag justice for Menglong. Then came a strange video, 10 seconds long. Grainy footage, flickering light. Yu's face appeared, half-shadowed, whispering one line before the clip cut to black. Not everything I lost was stolen, some things I gave away. The clip spread faster than wildfire. Fans dissected every frame, convinced it was a coded message. Some said it was AI-generated. Others believed it was real, recorded in hiding. But Eclipse Media denied everything. They said he'd violated a confidentiality clause and that all his future works were suspended indefinitely. And just like that, an entire career was erased from official platforms, like he'd never existed. 2 years later, Lian resurfaced. She had something, a drive, encrypted and time-locked, recovered from Yu's old apartment before it was cleared. Inside were video diaries, recorded between projects, where he spoke freely, unfiltered, unafraid. They told me to smile, he said in one clip. To say nothing when something felt wrong. To be an image, not a person. But images can break, too. In another video, his tone darkened. The contract wasn't about work. It was about silence. They said I couldn't speak of what I saw, the way roles were stolen, reputations destroyed, and lives traded for influence. He smiled faintly at the camera. They thought silence was obedience. But silence is only dangerous when it starts thinking. Those words sent chills through the internet when Lian leaked them anonymously under the title The Silence Contract. Unbound. What followed was a digital uprising. Fans, filmmakers, and forgotten artists rallied together under one phrase. Echo the silence. They began uncovering similar contracts, stories of other actors whose careers had been paused after inconvenient truths. Eclipse Media denied everything, but the cracks were visible. Their empire of silence began to crumble, not from loud protests, but from whispers, countless voices merging into a thunderstorm of truth. And then, one night, Menglong's social media came alive. A single post. No caption. No image. Just a sound clip. It was the same piano from his rehearsal room, playing a tune that fans recognized. The theme song from The Mirror's Debt, the band script. The message was clear. He was alive. And he was still creating. Months later, an independent film surfaced at an underground festival in Prague. It had no official cast list, no credits, just the initials YML hidden in the closing frame. The story? A young artist trapped by a silent contract who finally burns the paper that bound him. Critics called it haunting, revolutionary, poetic. Audiences wept. And though no one ever confirmed whether Menglong himself appeared in the film, there was a moment, a fleeting reflection in a mirror, where his face seemed to flash, smiling, serene, free. Years passed. The industry evolved. The serpent emblem of Eclipse Media faded into history, a cautionary tale for new stars. But every now and then, on quiet nights, fans still gather online and replay that piano melody. They talk about the man who vanished into legend, not because he lost his voice, but because he chose how to use it. Some say he lives abroad, working under a new name. Others believe he still hides among his fans, watching the echo of his silence ripple across the world. But one thing remains certain. Silence can be bought. Truth cannot. And sometimes, the loudest revolution begins not with a shout, but with a man who refuses to speak. A year after the mysterious film's release, an envelope arrived at Lian's doorstep. No sender, no signature. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the last page of The Mirror's Debt. It read, "If you are reading this, it means silence has done its job. But remember, silence is not the absence of sound. It is the space where truth prepares its voice." Below that, a single piano key was drawn in black ink. Middle C. The note of balance. The note where music begins again. And, in that quiet moment, Lian smiled. Because she knew Menglong's story hadn't ended. It had just changed form. From silence into echo. The night he signed the contract, Menglong felt something inside him die, not loudly, but with a quiet sigh, like a candle surrendering to the dark. The world saw a star reborn. But in truth, a voice had just been buried alive. They told him it was just business. A standard confidentiality clause, they said. to protect your image, to protect us all. But you knew better. It wasn't just about silence. It was about control, about keeping secrets that could set the entire empire ablaze. Inside that golden serpent contract were things no actor should ever be asked to ignore. The fine print glimmered like venom. Hidden beneath the elegant language were rules that read more like chains. You shall not speak of the replacements. You shall not speak of the shadows behind the credits. You shall not speak of what you saw that night in the studio basement. That last line haunted him the most, because he had seen something that night, something that could never be unseen. It was the night they shot the final scene of Autumn's Promise, the drama that made him a household name. But behind the glamour, behind the makeup and the camera lenses, you stumbled into a room he wasn't meant to enter. He had been looking for a prop, a forgotten letter from the previous scene, when he found a door slightly ajar at the end of the corridor. The air was colder there, and the laughter from the studio above sounded distant, muffled, as if the building itself didn't want to disturb whatever was happening below. He pushed the door open. What he saw wasn't a rehearsal. It wasn't even a set. It was a meeting, the kind that decided fates. 3 producers sat around a long glass table, their reflections twisted in the surface like ripples in water. Beside them, an actress you recognized, a rising star, stood trembling, her contract spread before her. "You'll sign this," one of the men said calmly, "and forget what you heard." Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. "You said he was gone because of illness. But he wasn't sick, was he?" The man didn't reply. He just smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. "You didn't stay to hear the rest." He closed the door quietly and walked away, his heart pounding in his ears. But someone had seen him. A shadow near the corner. A guard who wasn't supposed to be there. By morning, the director called him in. No explanations. No accusations. Just that same serpent seal waiting on a desk. "Sign it, you," they said softly. "It's for your own good." He didn't realize then that he was signing not only a contract of silence, but also a sentence. From that day forward, he noticed changes. Scripts rewritten overnight. Colleagues avoiding his gaze. An odd hum in the studio whenever he mentioned that night. And the actress? She was gone. No announcement, no farewell. Her name vanished from every poster, her scenes res hot, her existence rewritten. The only trace of her left was a single photograph, one you kept hidden in his jacket pocket. She was smiling in it, eyes bright, standing in the same hallway where their paths had crossed for the last time. But the silence began to suffocate him. Each time he stepped onto a stage, he could feel the weight of that forbidden knowledge pressing on his chest. Each line he spoke felt like a lie stitched into poetry. Then came the interviews, the smiles, the rehearsed words. What inspired your latest performance?" He'd answer mechanically, "The beauty of storytelling." "What do you think of your studio's work ethic?" "Professional," he'd reply, eyes blank. But behind those interviews, his mind screamed. He wanted to tell the world what he'd seen, what he knew. But the moment he tried, something strange always happened. The call would cut off, the microphone would glitch, the light would flicker. Almost as if someone, somewhere, was still listening. And then came the journalist, Leon. She had always sensed something unspoken in Yu's tone, like words trembling just behind his lips. "What were you not allowed to say?" she asked him one night in that same rehearsal room, her recorder blinking red. Yu hesitated. His hands trembled as he reached for the piano keys, pressing a single note, the same one he used to start every melody. "Do you believe in echoes?" he asked. Leon frowned. "Echoes?" "Yes. Because that's all I am now, an echo of the truth I can't speak." He handed her a small envelope. Inside were fragments of burned paper, the remnants of a page torn from his original contract. On it, only one line was still legible. "Any mention of Project Seraph will be considered an act of defiance punishable by erasure." Li An's voice cracked. "What is Project Seraph?" You looked away. "The reason silence is sacred." From that night, he vanished again. But this time, his silence wasn't obedience. It was strategy. He began leaving messages, hidden in his songs, coded in melodies, buried in the rhythm of piano notes. Every time he released a new composition online, fans would notice odd patterns, the beats forming Morse code, the harmonies spelling out strange phrases when reversed. Look deeper. She is still here. Silence is not safety. The messages spread across the internet like wildfire, each tune more haunting than the last, each performance carrying the scent of rebellion disguised as art. Eclipse Media tried to suppress it, deleting videos, censoring comments, issuing denials. But they couldn't erase the music. You can silence a voice, but not an echo. And soon, those echoes grew into a chorus. Other actors began whispering about forbidden contracts, about secret projects, about the price of loyalty in an industry built on illusion. A storm was building, and Menglong, the man they had silenced, had become its thunder. Some say he recorded one last message before vanishing completely, a video hidden deep within a forgotten fan account. In it, his face was pale but peaceful, his voice calm. "They told me truth was dangerous," he said softly. "But silence is worse. Because silence makes lies comfortable." He smiled faintly before the video faded to black. And then, faintly, his voice whispered one final forbidden truth, a line that the studio never wanted the world to hear. "There are rooms beneath the studios. There are names that were erased. And there is a story, the one I wasn't allowed to tell, still waiting to be heard." And then nothing, just silence. But this time, it didn't feel empty. It felt alive. Because even silence, when it's brave enough, becomes a language the world cannot censor.